In this video, I'm going to be guiding you through Chapter 3.3, Workers. Firstly, we need to look at the wage and non-wage factors. Firstly, we start off with wage factors. These will be time-based, as these can be paid hourly, daily, or weekly, and the time rate does not reward the employees that work hard. So realistically, you could be as lazy or as hardworking as possible, the pay will be exactly the same. Overtime pay is paid to workers that work over their contractual working hours. And these are for the people that need the additional income who will choose to work overtime. Bonuses is an additional lump sum of money paid during the year. Usually this is dependent on the performance of the employee. If the performance is excellent, then they might get a 20% bonus on top of their annual salary. The most common ones are employees at the bank, as they can receive over 100% of their annual salary for good performance. A commission is a percentage of the value of products sold. This is usually almost always in addition to a basic salary being paid. An example will be a real estate agent or an insurance brokerage employee. Moving on to non-wage factors. Some people decide to do jobs due to job satisfaction. This could be helping people with the skill set that the individual has, or it could be working for the benefit of other people. These include teachers, nurses, and people working in elderly care, as they do it for the job satisfaction and not for the money. Some people choose jobs based on the type of work involved, such as non-manual labor is less physically tiring and requires more mental stimulation as opposed to physical stimulation. Usually, mentally stimulating work is paid higher. However, skilled manual labor jobs such as plumbers and electricians are very highly paid in some countries. Also, these are very AI-proof jobs. Next, we have the working conditions and hours. So many people would like to work in pleasant surroundings where it's comfortable, air-conditioned, and heated. Regular breaks are also expected in some industries, and occupations vary in terms of the number of hours that are required to work. Some people simply cannot work full-time as they have other commitments. Therefore, the ability to work part-time is important for them. Holidays are a crucial part of employment. All countries will have a legal number of days for holidays. Some industries will have significantly more holidays compared to others, such as teachers in the UK get 13 weeks of holiday per year, compared to the minimum legal annual leave for the UK is 28 days paid. But overall, being at work is an opportunity cost to spending quality time elsewhere. Another non-wage factor is pensions. As people are living longer, pensions help to facilitate a more comfortable retirement. A pension will be able to ensure sustained standard of living after retirement. Fringe benefits are also another non-wage factor. These are additional benefits to the employee which have monetary value. These include free meals, free health insurance, free family benefits, and employee discounts. Job security is also a very important part of getting a job, as this assures the employee of guaranteed employment over time. If the employee is unlikely to be made redundant, this gives them job stability. On top of that, offering them long-term contracts will give them further job stability. The next non-wage factor is the career prospects, as some people are willing to accept lower wages with the possibility of promotion. And for most of you watching this video, in the future you will have to be willing to accept low pay and long hours at the beginning of your career. But over time, your pay will eventually rise with promotions and experience. The next factor is the size of the firm and its location. There are many people that prefer to work for a very large firm. As the pay is more attractive, they get more fringe benefits and the quality of work is usually elevated. However, some large firms are a little bit more bureaucratic and inflexible. Smaller firms provide more flexibility and a better atmosphere. And our final non-wage factor is the qualifications and skills that the employee has. As the more qualifications and skills that they possess, the more job opportunities will arise for them. And some careers are significantly easier to access than others. For instance, if you would like to be a neurosurgeon, this will take you 7 years at university and another 4 years of specialisation and another many years ahead of you in experience. Compared to an office worker, all you need is 3 years of experience and you're ready to go. Moving on to the wage determination. Simply put, the wage determination is determined by the demand and the supply of labor. The demand for labor is highly dependent on the state of the economy, such as a boom or a recession. During the heights of COVID-19, a McDonald's worker was getting paid roughly $15 an hour. This is the equivalent of 55 dirhams or 1,278 Indian rupees or 66 ringgit, 20 Singaporean dollars or 116 Hong Kong dollars an hour. These numbers might sound high to you, but at the time, the demand for labor was significantly higher for the supply of labor. As a result of this, McDonald's had to increase their wages to attract additional supply. The next factor is productivity of labor, as education and training increases the demand for labor as the quality of labor is elevated. Furthermore, the cost of labor is a factor to consider for demand of labor. And lastly, unattractive jobs will command higher pay to compensate for the working conditions of the employee. This is the demand for labor diagram. As you can see, when the wages decrease from W1 to W2, the number of workers demanded increase from N1 to N2. And the reason for the increase is that the cost of production is now lower, and firms are able to hire more employees to increase productivity. Moving on to the supply of labor. The availability of labor is important to factor in, as some professional jobs take significantly longer for the individual to specialize, such as doctors or chartered accountants. And other jobs that take less time to train, the supply of labor for these individuals will be more abundant. The supply of labor for unpleasant jobs would typically be lower, as the working conditions are not as great or they are at unsociable hours. Others include dangerous jobs, as there will be a limited supply of people willing to work in jobs that put themselves in danger. This is the supply of labor diagram. As you can see, when wages increase from W1 to W2, the number of workers supplied increase from N1 to N2. This is due to the more attractive wage rate offered, resulting in additional members of the public that are now willing to trade their time for W2. This is the backward bending supply of labor curve. So firstly, the wage rate increases from W1 to W2. This means that supply of labor will increase from H1 to H3. This is normal, as there are more people wanting to work for a higher wage rate. However, when the wage rate increases from W2 to W3, the supply of labor decreases from H3 to H2. The reason for this is that employees have a much higher pay now at W3, and they now value more time with their friends and family as opposed to money, and therefore the hours worked decreases whilst maintaining a standard of living which is acceptable for the individual. Trade unions have the ability to determine wages, as they enable workers to press their claims for higher wages and working conditions through collective bargaining. And the aims of trade unions is to ensure that the employee gets job security, good working hours, pleasant working conditions, basic pay and overtime payments, holidays, health and safety, prospects for promotion, and no discrimination at work. So looking at the relative bargaining power of trade unions, it really depends on the level of economic activity, as if they are in an economic boom, firms will likely agree to the union's requests. It also depends how many members they have in the union, as the more members in the union, the more funds to finance its activities and the more power it gets. If the union represents a large number of skilled workers, they are in a very strong position to bargain, as the skill takes a long time to attain. If there is a consistent demand for the product that the employees are making, the union is in a very strong position to bargain. This also depends on how favorable the government is to trade unions, as a union will be significantly stronger with the backing of the government itself. And if all else fails, strikes will involve workers withdrawing their labor organized by the trade union. And moving on to the national minimum wage. A minimum wage is set by the government in which firms must pay their employees, and it is illegal to pay below the national minimum wage. The goal is to reduce poverty and to increase standard of living. So let's have a look at the economic effects of setting a national minimum wage, as the wage is to increase from W to W min. The supply of labor will increase from Q star to QS. And the reason for this increase is because it is now more attractive to work due to an elevated pay. Demand for labor now decreases from Q star to QD, as it is less attractive to hire more employees due to the higher costs. The difference between QS and QD represents the excess supply of labor. Now, in some books, they like to shade in this triangle here and say this is the unemployment. This is incorrect. The unemployment represented in this diagram is the line here. Moving on to the reasons for the differences in wages. This one's relatively simple, which is the demand and supply for labor, as some goods and services are highly desired or necessary, which results in higher pay. And firms know that consumers are willing to pay any price to attain the good or service. The supply of labor might take a long time to train, such as doctors, and having a particular skill that people are willing to pay for, which naturally increases their wages. Next up, we have discrimination. This is when a group of workers are treated unfavorably. This could be in the terms of employment, which affects the wages received, the training received, the promotional opportunities that they don't get, and the reluctance to hire older employees. Government policy will influence wages in a variety of ways, such as setting a national minimum wage, introducing laws, or introducing a minimum requirement for specific jobs, such as surgeons, accountants, teachers, architects, etc., etc. The level of skill of the workers is an important factor, as skilled workers tend to be paid more than unskilled workers. This is due to the supply of skilled labor is relatively lower compared to unskilled, and skilled workers are usually highly productive in quality and its quantity. Another factor is working in the different types of economic sector, as the supply of workers in primary and secondary sector will vary. African countries will have a surplus of primary sector workers, as their population is large and they are predominantly a primary sector-driven country. Wages tend to increase when you move into the secondary sector, as demand and price of products made by the secondary sector rises, so the labor costs are higher in the secondary sector. The effect of discrimination is that female workers tend to get paid less due to the gender gap. Females are more likely to take time out of the labor force to care for their family. And for some countries, the social attitudes make it harder for female workers to find jobs. And it depends if you are working in the private or the public sector. And the government will be more willing to negotiate with the trade unions. Private sector workers, on the other hand, are paid depending on the demand for their output. Now moving on to the mobility of labor. Firstly, the mobility of labor depends on the industry, as if the industry is declining, the demand for products created will decrease, such as coal in the UK, or it could be a decline in their manufacturing due to outsourcing to China. However, as one industry declines, another should take its place. So such as technological advancements, other jobs such as prompt engineering, cybersecurity, and big data analysts will come up. Government policies will affect the supply of labor. For example, Brexit lowered the quantity of labor that was once upon a time supplied to the UK. So what happened there is less supply of labor due to less immigration, and there's also a less supply of labor due to emigration as current employees returned back to Europe. The mobility of labor is also restricted by governments with things like visas that are required by potential employees to attain in order to work in another country. All this takes time and money to apply for visas or working permits. The house prices in different areas will affect the mobility of labor, as they will find it very difficult to move into a high-income area as rental costs will be high. This is significantly important because a high proportion of income is spent on housing. Another factor is ties with family and friends, as people are reluctant to leave the country due to this, and they do not want to move away from their current social circles. As many people understand that time is more important than money, they do not want to sacrifice their time with their family just because they get a higher income. As families move to another country, they will experience different education systems for their kids. There is a reluctance to move to another country due to this, as this disrupts their children's education, and the value of education varies through country to country. Another factor is the lack of information, as some people are unaware of other job opportunities that are available to them. They are unaware of the value of their output and are unaware of what the competition is paying for their time. And the last factor that affects mobility is the ability to change jobs, as some jobs require significant qualifications and skills required in order to come out to the workforce. Some professions require 3 to 4 years of just being employed in order to specialize in a single aspect of their job, and lastly, the degree of vocation required. Now moving on to the division of labor. The division of labor is when workers specialize in one aspect of a role or a task. The advantages is that they are very skilled and they produce very high quality output. Therefore, this lowers the cost of production and it increases the output for the firm. They also earn very high wages. The disadvantages of this is that workers might get bored of their job. Their output therefore decreases and increases costs for the firm. This also increases absenteeism, and the employee will find it very difficult to find another job, as they only specialize in one thing. I hope that helped. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.